Hello, everyone. Welcome back to yet another political episode. So, we got some good news for the 2026 elections, mainly the primary elections, which actually, by the way, they are less than a year away. They don't mean priority, though. What 2025 is all about is going to be executing the draft, like I want to call, making sure that, hey, look, we got all the major races, we got good candidates declaring their runs. We're still waiting for Brian Kemp, the governor of Georgia, to finally make his decision and whether he will go with the Senate run or not. It's really up to him. If he doesn't, that means we'll just have to study the politicians more in Georgia. We have a good opportunity. We have a good list of Republicans to run in Georgia for that Senate seat. But it would just be easier just to have Brian Kemp run. We also have Wisconsin. We're waiting for blank on his name, Tom Tiffany, to announce his run. It would be easier just to have him run, take out weak Tony Evers. But we're still waiting for him. But yeah, so far we're just, for 2025, it's chill. We're trying to figure out those nominees, and we're trying to win 2 gubernatorial seats, which are very much up for grabs. What we're mainly talking about today is going to be very different. We're going to talk about the 2026 Arizona gubernatorial primaries because Donald Trump has made a very big bombshell announcement. He is endorsing both Andy Biggs and Karrin Taylor Robson for the said for the Arizona gubernatorial position to become the Republican nominee. This is pretty good. However, you'll see we got 2 candidates here. We have Andy Biggs. You'll see just now he is endorsed by Donald Trump. He has a co-endorsement with Karrin Taylor Robson. Robson is the current lieutenant governor. Not lieutenant governor, what am I talking about? Former member. So she's a former member of the Arizona Board of Regents, which she actually ran for governor in 2022, but she was defeated by Kari Lake in a pretty tight gubernatorial race. However, you can clearly see that Miss Gibson or Robson, whatever her name is, she didn't necessarily win any county. She did put some counties, like most of the counties here, in competition, but you'll see Kari Lake clearly sees the majority. But just to basically looking at the fact that Robson can't even beat Kari Lake, she isn't really a politician. Yes, she is officially the senior advisor to the United States Agency to Global Media, but she wasn't in politics in 2022. Her main background in the said gubernatorial race was a former KSAZ TV anchor, and she was pretty popular, as that was probably the biggest station in Arizona at the time. So I'm guessing that's the case. Like, beating a politician who, of course, is a part of the Arizona Board of Regents, which, of course, is basically a elected office, basically, in Arizona, I want to believe. Oh, yes, the Board of Regents is basically runs the universities. But it's pretty much guaranteed to say that I'm not really necessarily worried about the primaries. Red Eagle Politics is saying that these primaries, Trump has just saved these primaries, quote unquote. I am basically going to call it out and say he hasn't, because necessarily he was going to win those primaries anyway. We're looking at way before where Taylor Robinson initially had the Trump endorsement. Andy Biggs was defeating her by 71%. 71%. Why? Well, first off, we need to know who Andy Biggs is. Andy Biggs is a U.S. representative from the 5th Congressional District, right here, which is a pretty good congressional district. It's safe Republican, believe it or not. Don't let Democrats fool you. Oh, look at that urban land. It is 86% urban, but it's strongly Republican, as you can clearly see. 2024 voted 59% Trump and 39% for Harris. It has been the Republican and solidly Republican all the way through. Then again, this guy comes from a very solid Republican district. We're not worrying about this district possibly flipping Democrat, despite being in Maricopa County. It is indeed, by fact, a part of the very conservative suburbs of Maricopa County. So obviously, I am not really concerned that Biggs is retiring. He's officially running for governor. Someone else, it could be Charlie Kirk. I know Charlie Kirk was seen as a potential candidate. Do you think he'll run? No. And if he were to run, do you think he will win? I don't think so, because he hasn't built political experience. He is a leader. He's the CEO of the Turning Point USA, a right-wing populist organization and activist group. And but that's not qualifying enough. I'm speaking realistically here. I'm a big fan of Charlie Kirk, but this is not necessarily a qualifying encounter to beat out Katie Hobbs. Yes, Katie Hobbs is vulnerable, but we got to remind ourselves she is leading in the polls right now. She is leading. I think obviously her lead will drop once the primary is concluded. Andy Biggs has officially seized that nomination, and people just lose energy with Hobbs. But right now, barely any polls have been taken, and the likelihood that it's going to be a Biggs versus Hobbs race is going to be likely. I mean, these pollsters are going back and forth between Taylor Robson polls and Biggs polls with Katie Hobbs, and as of right now, Hobbs is defeating both of them. And I do believe strongly Andy Biggs is going to seize the lead. Let's remember, he is technically leading with the experience. He is a U.S. congressman. A lot of people generally prefer congressmen to be governors. Let's remember this. So that's why I'm kind of concerned about Virginia, about Abigail Spanberger running, because she's a congresswoman, but the only thing is she isn't incumbent, which I think it is possible we can pull it off. But then we have Mikey Sherrill, who is also a congresswoman, who is possibly going to be the nominee for the Democrats in New Jersey. So that I'm not trying to breathe back into 2025. It's the likelihoods that those two individuals are going to win those governorships. But Andy Biggs being a congressman, they'll say, he's a Trump Republican, therefore she can't win. Well, that's not necessarily true. First off, we saw Donald Trump pull off a 7-point win in Arizona less than a year ago in the 2024 presidential race. He can very well if he can do it, then Andy Biggs certainly can. And not to mention, he is proved inexperienced. Last time, the reasons why Democrats have done repeatedly well was we ran a Kari Lake, who, I'm sorry, people who like her, yes, but she's not a politician. She is technically a politician now, quote unquote. She is an advisor in the United States government. Yes, true. But before 2025, she wasn't a politician. She was an anchor. And that didn't necessarily qualify her, because Katie Hobbs ran with the experience. She ran all the way in 2022 with the title of experience. Why? Well, the fact is, yes, you have Kari Lake winning in the polls, but the fact is, very rarely does the inexperienced candidate in politics beat the experienced candidate in politics. So in this race, you were literally looking at a Hobbs versus Lake race, known as a Secretary of State versus a news anchor. Basically, and I would assume that the Secretary of State would win. So that's why I was like, I don't necessarily know that these polls are true. So I didn't get hopeful, and I was ultimately right that Hobbs would win. I'm not mean to be a downcaster on Kari Lake. I'm just saying, hey, look, I had doubts that Lake was going to pull that off because she's running against an experienced candidate in politics. She's running against an actual politician. So do you think that she would win? I'm not so sure. Obviously, turnout-wise, that would have done her well, but we know that Hobbs carried the beneficiaries of being the Secretary of State all the way through, and I knew that would probably benefit her. Same deal in the 2024 United States Senate election. Kari Lake was still known as a former newscast anchor, a news anchor, going against a U.S. congressman, which obviously didn't necessarily benefit her. So we got two examples of where Democrats managed to win decently in Arizona. Reasons why we aren't running actual politicians. Let's see the United States Senate election in Arizona in 2022. The 2022 Senate race, which, of course, Mark Kelly, yeah, he is pretty popular. People got a good taste of him for 2 years, which did benefit Kelly and his campaign and had him lead the polls all the way through. But who was Blake Masters? Let's see who Blake Masters comes from. Blake Masters. Okay, he's not even a politician either. He's a former president of File Foundation and chief operating officer of File Capital. So yes, then again, it's states like Arizona where, yeah, Republicans need to stop nominating business people and start nominating actual congressmen, congresswomen. Yes, people will bring up 2020 again. They'll say, oh, well, Martha McSally, whatever her name was, she was defeated by, Mr. Kelly, Senator Kelly, therefore, and she was a politician. In fact, she was the incumbent. Well, the thing about that, what's different was remember, the coattail effect still exists, but I want to believe Kelly was getting coattails from Biden. And in 2018, I mean, McSally has been proved herself to be a very weak candidate. I mean, she lost in 18 for a reason. Kirsten Sinema was also a politician. She's a U.S. congresswoman. So then again, and yeah, McSally, her background before being a senator appointed to fill that John McCain seat, she was she was also a U.S. representative and retired U.S. Air Force colonial. So yeah, I guess she was a U.S. congresswoman. But then again, there's such thing as a weak politician. But I don't think Andy Biggs is going to be weak. I think people will go out and vote for him. Not to mention, it's not like Katie Hobbs has put herself into a very unpopular position. She has not had a good few years as governor, first 2 years as governor, and she could be limited to a one term, as she could be ousted by Biggs. I mean, Biggs did win the first poll, but what would a race between Biggs versus Taylor Robson look like by primary? I'm going to tell you right now, Biggs being a representative, a U.S. congressman in the United States House of Representatives, is huge in benefits to him. Why? Yes, he works in federal government. Taylor Robson doesn't work in federal government, period. She works in the state, not even the state. She really helps run the universities in Arizona. So I don't think that's necessarily qualifying. You can't convince me that is more qualifying than being a U.S. congressman in the United States House of Representatives. Taylor Robson, I bet you anything, knows that too. Not to mention being destroyed and beaten by a news anchor 4 years ago. That doesn't convince me that Robson has the advantage in this primary. And I'll go as far as saying that, I think Biggs is probably going to win big by at least over 59%. Yes, it seems as if Taylor Robson does have an inch of support. She has the endorsement of Sarah Huckabee Sanders. I don't necessarily know why, but she does have that sort of endorsement. So I would say that Ron DeSantis sort of support. But Biggs will win this primary pretty easily and pretty bigly. There is no doubt that he wouldn't. So anyway, what do you guys think in regards to this video? Let me know down below. And as always, I will see you all in the next political episode.